We are live with JL Cauvin, and I have just asked you to catch up to and respond to the ambush disaster in the Oval Office today. Good to see you. Thank you for joining me.
Yeah.
People should know you just watched these videos of the South African president in the White House. You know the whole scenario, what happened last week when we imported the whites and exported the blacks. What are your thoughts about what you just saw there?
I think that the MAGA movement and Donald Trump in particular have been, for the last decade operating under this "no, we're the real victims" sort of fallacy. And now they've found some manufactured story. And once again, it's just like a Laken Riley or anything else. These people are dead. Of course, that's sad. Do you know what I mean? Of course, these people have been murdered. That's a sad thing.
These do not represent a larger trend or major epidemic or issue. They are horrible deaths, and it is true that an illegal person killed this person or that these people were killed. But we don't have an epidemic of this type of crime, and it's certainly not government policy.
Right. So, but in other words, if you fight back against it, they kind of pivot and do you don't think murdered women and children are a bad thing? No, that's not what I'm saying. Like you said, at the government level, usually the president is not hyper obsessed with every individual bad thing that happens. You can't govern or function if that's that. You have to be operating at macro level. That said, this narrative that they've sort of concocted with the help of Elon Musk and whoever else, probably Stephen Miller, maybe Tucker Carlson, right? Like the new KKK. They love this. I feel like if you could see inside Trump's pants, you'd see him getting aroused. Like there's a sort of fetish of they're feeding into the stereotypes that I've long sought validation for, that it's the white people who are the victims and white people are under attack. So there's this very spit in my face, dominatrix kind of vibe to Trump flipping through printouts of murdered people. He didn't seem deeply moved. It's more like do you like it when I say a family of 5 was brutally murdered? Oh yeah. You want me to say it? You want me to say it again?
It was so weird when he was going through the printout story.
Yeah.
He said there were thousands versus there's nowhere near thousands. But the most important part to me is the kind of legal definition of genocide and the way that he refuses to use the word in response to or reference what's happening in the Middle East or anywhere else where black people are being or have been slaughtered necessarily. He's got a lot of fucking Holocaust deniers that support him and might even work in the administration. So past genocides, current genocides, maybe not so much, but this is a genocide, which would have to mean, I think, that the government itself has policies that are taking land and killing farmers.
Ted Bundy committed genocide is what you're telling me.
Well, yeah. I mean, by the way, Trump as president took a white farmer's land to build, and more than that, to build this dumb wall. The New York Times just reported on it, like the title of the articles. Remember when Trump took a white farmer's land? But the government, it's eminent domain. It's this idea. It's not that convoluted, but it's clearly not a genocide. And this black South African president sitting there in the Oval Office, it was very much reminiscent of what they did to Zelensky, but it was a higher scale production. JL, there was video, article, props. It was like
he learned his lesson from Zelensky. The lesson was not to respect other leaders. It was more content. He's a content creator masquerading as a president. I think and this is in some ways, this is more offensive to like a history student. The Zelensky thing was more offensive in real time because Zelensky is a wartime president fighting for the lives of his people currently. Whereas the South African president, when you hear things like, obviously apartheid was very bad, and they wouldn't stop covering it. But now this is almost like the opposite of apartheid. Is it? Is it in a way, it's the opposite of apartheid because it's not a race-based system of exclusion. But I know what he means, which is like now it's apartheid against white people, which is the fantasy of the MAGA world. It's the fantasy to get to be victim and all powerful simultaneously. and any little fraction of a fact that they can gather to sort of support this idea that white people are actually under attack, no matter how much lunacy it sort of involves, there's a ravenous appetite for this stuff on the right now.
It's really crazy because if you talk to white South Africans, or if you watch anything or learn or talk to anybody that goes there, white people in South Africa apparently are doing very well. They're like a small percentage of the population, but they have a huge percentage of the wealth and the nice homes.
Well, it's
and
like white men in America. It's like white men in America. Any step backwards is a
genocide.
Cataclysmic tragedy.
By the way,
requires the redoing of society and the abandonment of anything else.
I'm contractually obligated to say during this conversation, white people do suffer. We are not dismissing the real suffering of any white folks watching or listening. Do not get confused about.
Once again, I'm speaking, but I'm speaking once again at sort of a macro level as well, which of course the president operates on the day-to-day individual cases.
The idea is that there are targeted government policies to minimize opportunity for white people and to persecute white people is such an unbelievable insult. It's to even be seriously grappling with it, as opposed to looking at a policy such as the way the vaccine was rolled out. Black folks in Queens were getting it first. White people heard and said, oh my God, it's racist against white people. And the public health community was like, no, more black people are dying. So we're going to try to vaccinate that community first. It's not, no, more of them. But before you get to state any facts, all they hear is, oh, the black people are getting the vaccine first. That kind of thing suggests somehow white people are suffering more. That's what we see every day in this country and led by this conversation. White genocide.
I think we're close to a statement similar to some sort of MLK statement where I think if Nelson Mandela was still with us, he'd probably support me. He'd probably agree with what I'm saying right now because he was very, as you know, and then he says something the other person doesn't know because it's false. As you know, he was actually more pro-white than a lot of people wanted him to be. You remember when Morgan Freeman played him and they did rugby with Matt Damon, and it was a very profound movie, and I think he would be with me right now. He'd probably be protecting white farmers. You wouldn't even be in this situation if he was president still, because he would be protecting the white farmers. We wouldn't have to open our borders to only white South African farmers and no other immigrant community in the world.
Including those who had been entirely vetted years ago, but we're still not allowed to come in.
Afghanistan translators? No, thank you. We're good. We don't speak Afghanistan here, so we don't need you to come over here and translate.
I like that he says we're good.
It's this is what I'm really starting to figure out. Not starting to figure out, but it's really becoming. I'm sorry?
At this late stage in the game, whatever it is, it'll be good.
It's not that I'm figuring it out, but it's becoming so blunt, it's overwhelming that, and I posted this quote. Adam Liptak of the New York Times had written an article about the late Justice Souter after he passed, how he said one of his biggest concerns in a rare kind of fiery answer to a question, because he was a very mild-mannered guy, was that he feared that the ignorance of civics and government in our country among our population would pave the way for a dictator or a anti-democratic strongman or somebody like that. And when you hear things like this, and people should be laughing at Trump. Like this is so comical. And I don't think it's necessarily mental deficiency. I think he's an ignorant, confident person. And that's a very dangerous combination. Arrogance and ignorance combined can be very dangerous, especially when 77 million people support it. It's the same thing as you see it every day now, because the good thing about this, these are what people might say, oh, these are teachable moments. Well, we have bad students in this country. That's the problem among our population, because when he says due process, they want due process for this guy. And I'm looking on Facebook and I'm starting to see all these pages where people are going, what about due process for Americans? These guys aren't even American. And people going, what about the January 6th protesters? Where's their due process? And I'm going, they got all the due process. They literally checked off all the due process boxes before being convicted and then pardoned. They literally got a very rare A through Z due process experience. And people, you realize if you don't know what due process is, just like all these people who've claimed to be constitutionalists,
right?
Or things like, whenever somebody says to me, I'm a constitutionalist, I go, you do not know what's in the Constitution. That's clear, because that's not a thing. A constitutionalist is not a thing.
Or when somebody's wearing a t-shirt or has a bumper sticker of the Constitution or a jacket with a picture of the Constitution, you know that guy.
Now, the guy who wears the shirt that says, stomp my flag, I'll stomp your ass, that guy does know the Constitution.
He does.
Yeah, that's actually, I've done the work, and that guy actually, there's a strong correlation between scholarship and wearing that.
You know who wears that? Posner.
Eric Siegel. Oh, kind of like another, like same wavelength, different. Erwin Chemerinsky.
So when you saw the Secretary of Homeland Security, former governor of South Dakota, be asked the question, what is habeas corpus, by the senator from New Hampshire, Jeanne Shaheen. First of all, I was like, we should do more of that. I don't love it. It's a gotcha question on certain.
It's a gotcha question when you're not qualified.
That's not what habeas corpus is not saying. What is Article 1 of what is the Bill of Rights? Some of those things might be more, but this is not. She needs to be able to explain what that is very easily, but she couldn't.
And you think if there was even the need to be curious in your job, that you weren't just sort of put there as a rubber stamp and a sort of quasi porn MILF looking person in the administration, you would, even if you didn't know, let's say, okay, you didn't go to law school. You're a governor of a rural state. You didn't go to law school. That doesn't come up in your governor work. But when you hear it in meetings or in the press, wouldn't you go, hey, staffer, or lawyer in my office, what's habeas corpus? But there's neither a curiosity nor a need to be curious about the things you're doing, because you're there to just be like, what do you want, Mr. President? You want me to go pose in front of prisoners in El Salvador? Sounds great.
Yeah, it's more of a figurehead than somebody who has any idea what they're doing. And that's the case throughout the government now. This Trump 2 version has a lot more cartoon villains, real cartoony people who don't have any idea about the agency that they are now and the head of or regulating. They're certainly not qualified to be there. I mean, most of them, I would argue, even from the Secretary of Defense to, Lee Zeldin, who is running EPA, is a nightmare. Yeah. Obviously, RFK is Junior. He's just he's insane. That dude is a sociopath in a way that I can't even. I don't know anybody like it. Rubio is the only one who someone can say qualified. So they gave him all the jobs.
Yeah, so they immediately gave him 3 or 4 jobs.
But he's completely hollow and sold out on all of his own former principles. So I'm just not. I guess my point is my assertion is about qualifications this time versus last time, and it's really terrifying. But
we have a country, and this is the stuff that makes me sort of feel a little, despondent. We have a country of people like, hey, Christy Nome didn't know what habeas corpus is. Well, I don't know what that is either. So what the fuck do I care? And Trump, he could go, and now they're saying habeas corpus. Who the hell? Habeas corpus, it's a Latin thing. It's there. We respect it. But who the hell cares about it? What is it? Does it affect your life? Do you ever walk to the store and say, sir, I'd like to fill up my car with some habeas corpus? Nobody does that. Nobody gives a crap about habeas corpus. And the crowd will laugh and cheer and we'll move on. And the next pundit to bring it up will be an elitist nerd who doesn't understand the working man.
The people who are most likely to not know what habeas corpus is are those being roughed up by police officers who scream, I know my rights.
Yeah, and my lefts.
The idea that you can be arrested or accused of a crime and have no recourse, people just don't realize how important that is to a society, that you do have some recourse some action you can take, some door you can lock, some person you can hire to protect yourself, some jury of your peers you might eventually get a hearing of. And we're just so dumb.
And I've said this, what I really and what I would argue to this country, and I've said it about the Second Amendment, and I'll say it about, hey, you don't like due process? We don't have to have due process. You have to amend the Constitution. Like, let's have a constitutional convention. I'm sure that will go well, but because certain things would be protected, guns would be protected. There'd be enough people. We would not be able to amend the Second Amendment. Due process would remain because you wouldn't have enough people and enough states to say, no, get rid of it. But that's what I keep kind of coming back to with all of this stuff.
Citizenship.
Huh?
What about birthright citizenship?
You want to change the Constitution? You can do it. Like, that's the thing. And the difference is Democrats have known for years where it's like, if only we could get the fucking Second Amendment out of there, but we come to the reality, but we can't. So we have to carve laws that protect people as best we can while we have a stupid Supreme Court. But the right doesn't come to that same conclusion because many of them don't really care. They like the Constitution the way they like the Bible, as like a brand exercise, but not as actual thing they understand or dive into or have a relationship with. And so they don't do the step where they go, well, due process for immigrants seems stupid. That doesn't seem like what our country should do. We should have an amendment that says illegal immigrants, if you are here illegally, you get kicked the fuck out. Yeah. You could do that if enough people want to do that. Well, by anything the way, is possible, but it wouldn't happen. But instead of them facing the reality or even learning what the Constitution is, they just kind of go, well, it makes no sense. This is so stupid. We should just do it.
On the issue, of course, that we're talking about, that they want to primarily, although they would remove due process for everybody, not just undocumented people. Right. On that population of people, the overall, the largest problem is that every time we try to create a solution, which is, comprehensive immigration reform or even a piecemeal law, we can't get anything done. So it's broken because Republicans won't let it pass, because Republicans want to get it done. There's no special interest against it. Big fucking money definitely wants these people here, but they can do small things like this one. You're not allowed Obamacare. They negotiated to get it passed. One of the things it says, undocumented people were not allowed to buy health insurance, which was the fucking dumbest thing in the world, because it means if an undocumented person gets hurt, the rest of us have to pay for their health care anyway, or get sick. Like, why would you tell an undocumented person, let's say they're a really bad criminal here, you can't buy a pack of cigarettes. You're not allowed to buy a thing, but they passed that. You can't buy health insurance. It's absolutely inane as a policy idea, much less in any way the public's interest, but they want no laws against them kicking people out. That's what you're saying. They want to just be able to remove anybody they want. And by the way, now send them to countries that are in bad situations that they're not from. We're now deporting people to other countries.
Right.
Who will take them?
I wouldn't put it past Trump to start, try to carve out a deal with Haiti and be like, the country is in shambles. Let's just, airmail people to a random spot in Haiti. It's
people who don't speak the language. It's so unbelievably cruel and inefficient and creates. Why would a country allow that?
And I love the idea, obviously the compassionate Christian conservatives that permeate MAGA. I love the idea of like, if they kind of do an equivalence just to make themselves feel better, I guess. If you're here illegally, you're a criminal, get out. So it's like, hey, mother of two who's been selling fruit, get your ass to a prison somewhere.
Whose kid has cancer?
Yeah, well, that's bonus. But this is why I feel depressed about this country, because
we're not talking. Well, of course we feel depressed about this country. It's a given in our conversations. But hold on a second. I got to ask you about another two words.
Yes.
Work requirement. Work requirement. If you want health insurance you can only qualify if you do a certain amount of hours of work every week, and we know about it because we don't want you getting access to health insurance, because what are you going to do with it? It's health insurance.
You're just going to go to the hospital and sell your health benefits for crack.
You can't sell your health benefits. There's nothing you can do but get health care.
Pete, there is reporting and stories on OAN about people going to hospitals.
What's your copay?
You know, a doctor walks in and is about to administer health care, and then instead they sell that advice for drug money.
Do another one. Like people don't. I went to the dentist last week after avoiding it for a year and thinking about how I was avoiding it most days, most weeks, because my gums were bleeding and I wanted to do nothing about it because I'm terrified of the dentist. People don't go to the doctor or to healthcare. We avoid it. We don't want it. It's a weird thing to say. You have to go do this job to earn access to a thing, or that it's abused in ways by the individual as opposed to some guy who's running a scam on getting the government to pay him, driving Medicaid people or something like that. There is waste, fraud, and abuse, but it's not very often by someone.
Yeah, doctors running pill mills are generally not impoverished people. It is just this. It's this hostility towards poor people, and I think they have a vision of what a poor person is in their mind, and there's just a hostility. Like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what to do.
Well, just look at make a point about the work requirement. Every other country in the world offers their people, every civilized rich country at least, access to at least mediocre, much less lower tier health insurance.
Mm-hmm.
We don't, unless
I had a work requirement for my health insurance. That when I worked at a law firm, I had to work for the law firm to get their health insurance. But when you are poor and it is a net benefit for people to have some kind of health insurance, it just doesn't make any sense, except if your motivation is to look tough and make a message about punishing people.
Right.
I don't know. It's this, but there's a lot of people in this country who wanted this, and a modicum of respect to Josh Hawley for at least walking the consistent populist line a little bit.
Specifically, he's standing up in the Senate for Missourians, who he represents, against Medicaid cuts.
Yes.
He's not alone. He's not alone in Republicans.
Right.
But that's not for people. That's not for the poor people. That's for the hospitals who employ people in his state, who take care of people in his state. Like, senators can't have hospitals closing in their state. Congress people can't have hospitals closing in their district. They can't have it.
Right.
You can't be a congressperson or a senator and on your watch a hospital closes because you voted to defund it.
Unless you live in Mississippi, and I always found that so strange. Like, they're like bottom three in like education, health, and money and income. And yet they keep going, well, let's send a, son of some Klan member back to the governor's mansion. Not suggesting Tate Reeves is the son of a Klan person. I'm just playing the odds there. But it's, like they would talk about like Mississippi has been like one of these states that's like, we're never expanding Medicaid. Obama will die before we take Obamacare. And it's like, yes, you will, because your hospitals are closing. And, they are much more faith-based, MAGA, much more faith-based about MAGA than they are Christianity.
Sure. Well, yeah. They got
like MAGA is really a demonstration of faith, not how they sort of ignore Jesus, but MAGA, they're just like, If it hurts me, it's okay. If it hurts my neighbor, that's okay. If Trump says it's one thing and my eyes are telling me it's something else, I know in my heart that this is the way it has to be. It is a faith-based movement. And you can't really negotiate with it. Like, my thing is, we have to find a way politically to motivate more progressive people. I'm not saying there's a limit to how much you can compromise and come together, but building the left of center and center tent to get as many people willing to vote is the way to overcome this. Because at this point, I genuinely see no purpose in talking to somebody who is a Trump supporter at this point. I go, you're not living in the, I know you say Earth 1, Earth 2, but it's like, you are gone. Like, live your life, enjoy your rights as an American, but you're gone. Like, there's no meeting of the minds to be had at this point, because you are, we're not operating under the same anything. But if somebody who didn't like Biden's policy on Israel or wants Medicare for all, you got to find what the point is up for those people, that they are willing to come to the table and vote with you, even if you can't give them everything they want. And the people who want like no relationship with Israel, Medicare for all, I'm like, I'm sorry, that's just not actually going to happen.
I care so much about policy, as I know you do. I've been covering it and talking to policy experts my whole career. But at the same time, when you're saying what we have to be or we have to offer, and it's a really good and important conversation and debate, we got to get people to vote for something. Part of me also thinks, given my concern and understanding of policy and why it matters to people's lives and putting the public interest over the profit motive, I still feel like anything that's not this should be motivating enough.
I agreed. And what I think,
if we don't solve climate change ever, and we all melt, if we don't fix Medicare, but it stays solvent, Social Security, if we don't, segregate things more, like anything but this would be a huge improvement. In the chat, I see Benny writes, I feel like a lot of people forgot how exhausting it is to have a malignant narcissist as president. And it's like,
I don't think people forgot. I don't think it's necessarily forgetfulness or like, hey, things don't seem so bad anymore. I have said, and one of the things I want to sort of say if and when I run for something is, some Democrats seem to, at least disaffected Democrats seem to always, and I hate to say this, sort of ignorant Democrats or progressives will say things like, do something. What are they doing? What are they doing? And it's like, if you're willing to ignore civics and the rules of governing in this country, I guess you can say that. But sometimes a party has to play defense. Like, in other words, sometimes holding the line. And I feel like Democrats, maybe I'm not usually a Democrats do a bad job messaging guy, but on this front, I would say they need to sometimes emphasize, we have a constitution. There are ways that laws and policy get made. And sometimes we don't have the numbers. We will hold the line. We will protect, just like they never got credit for holding the line on abortion. It was just like, well, now we just have abortion. So like, thanks. Now I'm going to vote on something else. Yep. While Democrats with one hand were still holding, or one finger, had a finger in the dike or a hand holding up the wall. And nobody treated it like that was an active thing that Democrats were doing.
Another great example of that is the fact that after every horrible shooting, people say nobody does anything, nothing ever happens. When in fact, activists who often become policymakers and Democrats have done a ton of things.
If you had 80 Chris Murphys in the U.S. Senate, you'd see a whole lot get done.
But at the state level, a whole lot has gotten done in New York and Connecticut. Now, that can all be overruled by the federal government and Supreme Court. But my point is just to say things are happening. You might not pay attention, but we need to give credit to activists and the people who are actually doing good things and give them credit, as opposed to being so cynical as to say they're not doing anything. As you're saying, just being on defense is doing a huge thing.
Right. Whereas I look at Trump right now, and I would argue this shows how ineffective he actually is as a leader. And the Republicans they're on offense. They have the ball. they're at the 10-yard line, and we have no defense we can even put out there, and they can't fucking pass anything. And what they're trying to pass is like, I have said to people with the SALT deduction, I'm not a homeowner. My brother is, my mother is. I'm the black sheep. But I look at that and I say, to 10,000, it was capped at 10,000. That was a punishment for blue states, so that they'd have to pay more. It's
important to go back and explain to people watching that when they were trying to pass a tax cut when Trump was president the first time, they looked for savings, and how they found them was taking away an incentive for homeowners, specifically in blue states. He decided, I'm going to punish the people in blue states whose votes I don't need. But a lot of those people were Republicans and wealthy people, and
some in Republican districts, like Lawler is one of your congressman, is one of the people fighting this. And my theory on this, and it's easy for me to say as a non-homeowner, but I've seen what Jersey homes cost and like the relative taxes associated with certain costs. So like $1 million home in a community near me, it'll list on Zillow or whatever. The anticipated annual taxes, $28,000. Okay. Now, what I look at that and say is, if we had a president who was saying, I don't think we should raise the cap on SALT, but what we're going to do with that extra money is energy infrastructure, updating our energy infrastructure to be more amenable to clean energy. If this money were, just like Jersey has the highest property taxes, but also the best rated public schools in the country. So there is a bang for the buck equivalent. At least you can say, oh, my taxes are going to this product that is working and gets good ratings. But what these taxes, these deductions being taken away, it was to feed the ultra wealthy's tax break. And to that I go, that's insane. You're literally taking from like upper middle class people to feed the uber wealthy. And I'm of the opinion that I think somewhere in our future, everyone, excluding obviously the very poor, the getting by day to day or week to week, has to chip in. But like, I find it funny that at this level, it's like the main priority is still a massive tax break for the wealth. Like, how do we give these rich people their big tax break?
Your larger point was not the tax cut, but that Republicans can't get anything done even when they have control.
And that's what's so funny is that it's like they're on, like I said, they're on offense. They're a 10-yard line. Our defense is injured, can't stop them, and they can't even. Their voters should be furious. Like, why aren't you like instead it's Trump feeding them like red meat through executive orders and offensive statements. And it's like, you elected a fucking a manosphere content creator to be your president, and you're not even asking him to do anything that's actually presidential. They should be running up the fucking score. What Joe Biden did, and I know, there's a lot of Joe Biden talk out there, but his first 2 years with a 0 margin in the Senate did epic fucking things.
Did more in one term than any president of our lifetime, with 0 margin of majority in the House and Senate.
And like him or not, I would, if I were either a Trump voter or a classic Republican who's like, well, the policies, this and that, whatever, I'd be looking at Trump going, what the fuck are you doing? Like, seriously, like, I want certain things done policy-wise, you can't do it.
None of them, they all asked for a tax cut. They may or may not get it, but none of them asked, except for special interests, for this trade war. That's the thing. He's giving them something. That the one thing he's doing is something that nobody,
right,
except for certain manufacturers, certain unions obviously want a tariff to give themselves an advantage, but nobody wanted what he's doing. Nobody consulted him to do that. He came up with this one. It would seem straight out of his ass. I do have to ask you, what do you think about Jake Tapper's and Alex Thompson's book?
I just got it today. It's the next book on.
You purchased.
I did.
Gave them your money.
Wow. I'm not. Wow. You're not going to find a fucking bigger Biden defender than me, but I am a believer, and maybe this isn't that popular, or it is in some circles. It is newsworthy. It is history. It is newsworthy. I think books take time to fucking come out. It's not like if they could have had it come out 8 months ago, I'm sure they would have. But I got it because I keep up on things. I stay plugged into the issues of the day. And as much as I'm a fan of Biden, I think there are some disturbing things in this. I said this on Rain on Your Parade many, many months ago, that if I ever ran for office, I really do believe our country, and I think Biden and Trump do prove this to a certain extent in very different ways. Congress, we have to convince this country that Congress needs to assert itself more. Congress has really, and under Trump, it's shrunk to a fucking rubber stamp. But I think you can see in both cases, a robust Congress, regardless of party, is needed as a check on the executive. And instead, it feels like, both for political reasons and policy reasons, Congress, and many mentioned Congress, seems very content to either hide behind the executive or defer their own power to the executive. But yes, I bought it. I'm not happy about it, but I also don't have
what to the criticism of, if you're a reporter, you're Jake Tapper or Alex Thompson, and you get this information, you should report it, not save it for a book that you can make millions off of.
I think wouldn't your reporting access be much damaged if you were going to share this immediately?
It's always a question about how you ask questions and what you report on. Will it limit your access? But you have to do what's in the public's interest. It's a balance.
But if you can't, if people won't agree to give you the information, and then you're not going to just report on like your own.
I'm not saying that that's a right way and that you're wrong. That's an argument being made. All right, well, let me move on then to anything around his illness? Other than thoughts and prayers, obviously.
No, I feel bad because I think Joe Biden, I just think it's a sad ending to this story. And people want to, all of a sudden we're like, people are acting like he's the first president to ever have a fucking ego and not be able to step aside when, it's a story in all people of fame and popularity and power, whether it's athletes or actors or politicians, they have a very hard time moving aside. And I just think he never got the credit he deserved when his administration was really humming and getting things done. And now for this, everybody in this country, it feels like, whether you're liberal or conservative, you want to dump every bad feeling you've ever had under Trump on him, because Trump doesn't listen, doesn't care, has no.
Yeah.
And it's the same way with Democrats in general. Like I see progressives bitch 100 times as much about the Democrats than they do MAGA and Trump. And I feel like that's an acknowledgement in and of itself, where it's like, well, you listen to me, so I know at least you'll hear me and I can complain to you. Whereas if I complain about the person who's really at fault, they don't care. And then I scene. So I'm going to bitch to you. But then when it comes around to how do we change things, you fold your arms and say, I'm a progressive of integrity and I'll be voting third party or not voting. But then I'm immediately going to complain about you not doing what I want.
I share your view on about that type of thinking and ideology. Although I do think we all struggle. Maybe not me as much. I'll say I think I have a pretty good handle on the root of problems because I talk to the experts about them all the time. Doesn't mean I'm right, but I think that what we have a hard time doing is ascribing the root and cause of a problem, including progressives, and we just blame it on often the wrong people and the wrong causes. Certainly, it's more commonly done, I think, on the right, because they're not even paying attention, or they think it's God or whatever nonsensical thing. But it's very common as well, I think, for progressives, Democrats, and liberals, is to be a little bit lazy about how the real world works, A, and B, just getting it wrong, blaming the wrong reasons.
And I plan on doing like a civics web series this summer.
Yeah, what's up with that?
This summer. That's when that'll be like
Okay.
July through September.
All right.
But one of the things that I want to point out, and this is as much for progressives as it is for conservatives who haven't like closed their ears and eyes, in the last 100 years, you can kind of point to just about every benefit or feature or policy that you like in your life. Not necessarily like a vague thing of like, I like our strong relationship with, in Desert Storm or our fight. I mean, like things that benefit you. You can kind of point in the last 100 years, it was most likely done by a Democratic president with a lot of Democrats in Congress. So whenever you're saying, don't take my Medicaid or my Medicare, you know who fucking gave that to you? Democrats. You know who protected it for you? Democrats. And that's when I talk about offense and defense. Sometimes we're going to give you new things and help increase your abundance, to use the Ezra Klein, book title. But sometimes somebody's going to come and lie to you and tell you they want to take it away. And we're going to say, no, you can't take it away. And you deserve as much credit for protection as you do for, increasing what you have. Sometimes you have a lock on your door. It doesn't mean you're going to get new presents, but it means maybe a fucking burglar won't get in and steal the shit you already have. And you should say, thank you, lock. And I feel like we get caught up too much in this country of going, when are they going to do something? When are they going to do something? And, just like the child tax. What was the fucking thing that Biden did?
Where they cut child poverty in half?
Like 40% or something. Yeah. And Joe Manchin dusted off his 1980s, like Don Imus book of complaints and said, well, they're just going to use it to get drugs. Well, they didn't. They just had it, and there wasn't a massive drug epidemic, you leathery piece of shit. But I also looked at that and said 48 Democrats were voting for that.
Yeah.
And people go, Democrats didn't do anything. 0 Republicans voted for it.
Yep.
The lesson there is, can we get 3 more Democrats? Not can we dump the 48 Democrats?
That's why I celebrate great American Democrat moderate senator from, I believe, North Dakota, Byron Dorgan, who in 2000, no, it must have been in the late 90s, voted against the deregulation of the financial industry, voted against ending Glass-Steagall, and on a floor speech, that Senator Dorgan, who I interviewed, said, if we do this in 10 years, we're going to have a major, major economic crisis. I'm paraphrasing. And he was right. And we should celebrate the people who were right about all kinds of different things. They are the lock on the door. They are the antibiotics that you took that cured the awful illness that you had before.
Yeah, right. Sometimes you're an antibiotic. Sometimes you're not cocaine. Sometimes you're amoxicillin. But neither of those things are fucking Republicans.
How about this? You're reading this book. I hadn't heard of it until you told me right before. Tell me about this book, and then I'll let you go. It's titled "There Is No Place for Us: Working and Homeless in America." The author is Brian Goldstone, who's a PhD from Duke in anthropology, but he's a journalist. He's been writing long form, investigative type journalism, but this is his first book, and apparently it's a real humdinger, really important, and it's really affected you.
Yes. And apparently he played on the Duke lacrosse team, so I guess he's trying to make up for it. No, I'm kidding. No, this book is, let me tell you something. If you're a person who wants me to give you money right now, if you run into me on the street, I'm giving you money. Because this book is... Where
will you be tonight around 8?
Watching Mission Impossible 7 on my TV.
Oh, I hear it's long.
Well, the 8th comes out tomorrow.
Oh, wait.
So watching the one that came out a couple years ago.
Mission Impossible is not available for on demand at home. It's only available in the theater, right?
That's right. Tom Cruise is not doing any
my friend saw it.
Shit.
My friend saw it yesterday. It was long.
I hear it's very long, but I'm one of those people who it's like, you know what, you can 3 hours of Tom Cruise, that's fine.
I'm with you. All right. So if you want us to give you money, now's the time because of this book.
If you want to get money from me, if you walk up to me and say, "Sir, can I?" Yes, you can. It is a book about homelessness and housing in Atlanta. He picked Atlanta, and he follows 5 different families of various makeup, and the struggles they endure. And this is sort of like, there was a book a few years ago. It was one of the first books I reviewed for my book review show, called Invisible Child, and it ended up winning the Pulitzer Prize. But this book, on a policy level, while not being a dry policy book, he integrates sort of the different federal and state policies while telling these people's struggles. It is a constant sense of tension and desperation throughout this book. And these are people who, I mean, it's very easy to cherry pick things, but you're seeing such an array of problems hit these people as they try to make ends meet, and all the bureaucratic hurdles, and on a federal level and on a state level. And then when I'm going to probably do like a TikTok about this book before I do like the full review for my Patreon, but it is like overwhelming. It's overwhelming me reading this book, because it's just like, there's no indication. These are not perfect people. Like, nobody's perfect. It's weird that you always have to kind of say that. Like, to be like, you should still have sympathy for them living in their cars and struggling to make ends meet, even though they're not perfect people. But on every level, the things working against them: gentrification, loopholes in tax laws that allow low-income housing to convert after 15 years instead of like the statutory 30 years that it's supposed to be. The difficulties in getting Section 8 housing, getting evicted when your home burns down, and then having that on your record when you try to get into other housing, and trying to keep a job and getting fired from DoorDash because and being scared your car will break down and then you will lose your livelihood.
When you read that book, does it ever occur to you that these people are making bad choices? Why don't they make better choices?
But the thing is, bad choice. No. I know you're making a joke, but obviously you need to kind of be prepared for that. And that was the book I mentioned earlier, Invisible Child. I remember when I read the author's note about, she chose this girl living in like public housing in Brooklyn, because she said, if I do the family, if I focus on like the adults and everything, the policymakers, Republicans, will say, well, bad choices, drugs, children out of wedlock, all these values, failure of values. But Republicans have to at least admit, which they do, and they do nothing about it, hence the child tax credit not being extended. Children, they will say, well, we've got to help the children. Now they don't even say that. Like, that's how far they don't even have to pay lips. They don't even have to pay lip service to helping poor kids, let alone help poor kids. And in that book, she focused on a child because she thought that might resonate more and maybe lead to more change, because it's not an adult who's making bad decisions. In this book, obviously there are thoughts of, she had a kid when she was in high school, but you're in Georgia. And based on the way their laws are, it wouldn't shock me if it's an abstinence only education or whatever kind of. So it's this like completely vicious, cynical cycle of, don't have kids, but we're not going to teach you about sex or provide you with access to birth control or prophylactics, because, that's immoral and that's the family's plan. But if you get pregnant, don't get an abortion. You got to have that kid because family values. Oh, but you got to get a job. You got to get a job. What's that? You have a kid? Well, you shouldn't have the kid. Well, I have a kid. Can I still work? Where can I have child care? Anything? No. Okay, I don't know what you want me to do. Be more responsible. Well, we're here now. We're here now. Do you have anything that can help me? I'm willing to work. Can you give me child care assistance? No. Okay, I got a job. My aunt is going to look after my child. Do you have affordable housing I can get into? Yes, but you can't move in with your boyfriend because he had an arrest and that he's not allowed on the lease, or whatever the case may be. Like, it's this never ending, and these are poor people.
What about the job that you have, but but it's pretty far. And so you have to rely on public transportation. And even if it's on time and works and you can afford it, it's still an hour each way.
Yeah, and then I have to run to my bus after my 11:30 p.m. shift to catch the last bus.
Yeah, it's real life.
And there are like there are things like her boss gave her 29 hours because at 30 he'd have to provide her with health insurance. And it's all these things. And I'm telling you, I am, as you can tell, pretty passionate reading this book, because as much as I am focused on elder care and climate change as some of the things that really matter to me on a policy level, this is making me, I'm reading this going, holy fucking shit. This is like the nitty gritty compliment. And the funny thing is I just read Abundance by Ezra Klein. So on my Patreon next week, these are the two books I'm reviewing. And Abundance is like it's a very well-written book, very accessible, but it's kind of the intellectual 20,000 view, or whatever the phrase is. Like it's the macro kind of view of how can we change in the aggregate in terms of we need more housing. We need more energy infrastructure updates. We need massive investment in this country and people willing to do it and break some things to get it done. This is the micro level of what happens when you don't have housing, not just homeless people in the abstract. You know, this is because
the journal thought and basically embeds with these families.
It seems like he was embedded with like five families, and it's got all the different aspects. You know what I mean? It's like, here's the couple that stayed together and was viewed as like a rock solid, doing it right couple. And as soon as one loses a job or one, like all of a sudden they're falling off a fucking cliff. You know what I mean? And it's such an incredible book in terms of both the personal and then giving you the kind of, like, I think the thesis of it, and like I said, I have about 80 pages left in it, but it's almost like homelessness is really a series of choices, but much more the choices of who governs us and the communities we live in than it is the people who become homeless. Do you know what I mean? Like if you change laws and zoning things in Atlanta, many of these people aren't homeless. Like they're working, they're doing the things that you say you've got to do. You know what I mean? And they're homeless. That's why working and homeless, I'm certain if I can ever talk to this author for my podcast, I am certain he chose, just like that woman, Andrea Elliott, chose a girl to focus on instead of an adult. She chose a child to focus on. I'm sure working and homeless, that's the key. It's not homeless and fucking around. It's working and homeless. It's like you're doing the things that the naysayers and the haters and the hypocrites tell you to do, and you cannot make it. You cannot make it in these situations. And once again, Georgia, one of the several MAGA red states that still has the $7.25 minimum wage in 20. How do you, that seems like a crime. And I know I'm starting to sound like a super rabid leftist here. A minimum wage in America in 2025 of $7.25. I feel like you should be brought up on like international criminal court charges if that's what you're doing. Because you're basically saying, we don't expect you to be able to afford to live. Do the job. Please, we need you to work this convenience store, this gas station, this fast food restaurant so I can have what I want. But we don't expect you to be able to live anywhere in this state while you work here for my benefit. I was saying to my girlfriend last night, I was like, I'm starting to kind of understand why people think the bus should be free. Because especially in where I live, when I take the bus everywhere, I don't have a car. I take the train and I take the bus. And when I'm on the local bus to go to the mall or something, it's me. It's my, the over under on white people on the bus is 2, because it's half of me, one of my girlfriend. And the question is, are we the only people with white heritage on this bus, or does one more person get on the bus? And I say that because I've taken the bus a lot of places in this state already, because that's how I travel. And you start to realize this state, its laws, and this is a blue state, but it feels like, oh, the bus is for the poor, the working poor people to get to the places. And my brother once said it to me. He said, the bus is not here for the passengers. It's here for the businesses that need those passengers to get to work. and in terms of how to psychologically
Really,
analyze it. And
really,
that's why I think now I'd be pushing for the bus to be free. Like, and another thing, I'm sorry to do this, but also if I want to get a monthly or a weekly ticket on my app or with my credit card, I can do that. And I save money. I'll save money on the bus. But the person who can't put down whatever, $30 in advance for their bus ticket or doesn't have a credit card to use on the app, they're going to pay more on the bus per trip than me.
Isn't working homeless just a California thing?
It's not.
Oh.
I think it's more of a trend in California. I think people are just doing it like because it's like a TikTok trend.
No,
tenting, hashtag tenting.
The book is written about families in Atlanta, but he could have chosen, I'm guessing, anywhere.
But I feel like he chose Atlanta because it represents one of these cities in the last 30 years that's made this rapid, oh my God, Atlanta is such an up and coming. He could have done DC. DC, it gets mentioned a little bit here because one of the families moved from DC. They got priced out of DC. Oddly enough, they left DC a bit after I left DC from law school. And I will tell you, DC it is unrecognizable. And I'm not saying progress is not good in terms of more homes, more money, more taxes, but it's like they have been priced out. Like it's you know what I mean? Like it's like it's progress for somebody, just like Tim Scott's bullshit. And he mentions the opportunity zones.
Yeah.
Those were not for the people living there. Those were for businesses to get the places where poor people are living and then build up wealth and create new opportunities to attract non-residents or people not from there to go there. Whereas then you say, oh, people who are living here, you can't afford. The opportunity in the opportunity zone is not for you. It's the opportunity for someone else to move into your zone. And you stay like, you know what? This is one of those things. And I know William Barber, the Reverend from North Carolina, who's kind of like a, spiritual descendant of Martin Luther King.
For sure.
It feels like I was in my head thinking, if I ever got into Congress, I would fucking say, can we have like we never had Martin Luther King died before you could have that sort of like, I guess it was going to be a homeless people, but like a working homeless event in DC.
A summit to hear from people who are living in situation that, as opposed
and you
to
get like people, you get some big fundraisers to maybe obviously waste, fraud, and abuse, but to reimburse tickets or something, or to like help fund, because it's like, this is a crime. It feels like a crime.
The Poor People's Campaign, which has been doing amazing work forever, but it's real hard work, but nothing's harder. There is no job harder in America than being poor. That's the great myth, is that somehow you're poor because you are lazy and you made bad choices. It's like I've been quote unquote poor, meaning I wouldn't take money from my parents. Like it was a pride thing. And I had all the best mentors and I made some bad choices and some good choices, but like it's not easy when you can't think about, when you put yourself in a position where you're not sure if you're going to be able to pay your bills, which is the issue with most Americans, to have less than even that. And then to have all these other issues saddled on you, which just snowballs: bad credit, healthcare issues in your relationships, issues with your kids. Yeah. God forbid, on top of all that, by the way, your kid has any kind of special need or disability. It's real and it needs to be addressed, as opposed to just constantly talked about and demagogued and used to make people believe that.
Yeah, homelessness is like a problem for people. And I'm like, imagine how much of a problem it is if you're homeless. You don't like walking down the street. I get it. I'm not here to be like, who gives a shit? You've got it better than them. I get it. You have a home. You want to, you don't want a tent city outside your apartment. But also, imagine how bad it is for that person or family in the tent.
I'll say this.
And we don't do that. I don't think we do that enough.
Of course not. We're like, ew, I don't want to look at that. Get them out of here. Sweep them away, as opposed.
Pete, and this isn't me being like, I'm so great, but I gave a homeless man, he said to me, he's like, do you have I'm really trying to get something to eat. I was in the city and I walked by. I was like, I kind of like, sometimes I don't think I have cash on me. And then I was like, oh, wait. And I walked back and I gave him $10 and he gave me a hug. And first, obviously, I thought gross. But then I thought that was a joke. Sorry. No, but then I was like, it made me sad because I thought that was not performative. Like I just saved that fucking guy's like night.
Yeah.
Whether it meant food or whatever. And I was just like,
It's
what
real.
are we doing here?
Yep.
What are we doing here?
I don't mean to top you, but I had a guy ask me for a ride and I actually bought him a Honda Civic and he blew me. I don't mean to top your $10 hug story.
No, that's all right.
But
that's okay. But yeah, no, it's, and I look at that and I go, this can't be. And I've told you before, I used to give to charity a little, if a friend was doing a race or something, but when I had a real unexpected windfall, the 2 years, like 2020 and 2021, I gave a shit ton to charity.
I know you did. I know how much you gave to GiveWell.
Right. And that was like a tiny frat. I gave a lot because I was sort of like, I sit at home, I'm making videos, I got a day job. So I got all this extra money coming in, I got fans, I'm feeling good. But I was also like, I don't really do anything with my money. Like I don't mean that, like I'm a very simple, I like movies, I like books, I like, going to games or something. I'm not like, I want to go to fucking Tahiti and like have a White Lotus week.
Expensive life. You go to a lot of shows, you go to a lot of Broadway shows.
Sure. But it's like, no, and don't get me wrong. I'm not saying those aren't like very expensive to some people, but I'm like, my tastes are pretty basic. I'm a pretty basic, low key person in terms of what I spend my money on. And so I really kind of felt guilty. And whether it was Catholic guilt or
about how much money you were making doing,
and the news was about people suffering. And so I started giving to a lot of these different charities. Now I can't give as much as I did, but I still try to like come close to like tithing, if you want to put it in religious terms, which I know you don't. But to me, it was like, I gave like in 2020 and 2021, I gave like $50K in charitable donations, like combined. Wow. I only say that because that is a lot of money to me. I don't mean to act like I was but I was like, I'm just chilling here with my girlfriend and my dog, watching streaming shows, like eating takeout. I'm not doing anything. There's people who need this. And like, I thought to myself, I was like, how come we're not like that as a society? Like that didn't impact me at fucking all.
Because we've lost religion.
I agree. But it's like, you got me on a roll here. And I know I'm doing my thing where I talk forever, but it was like, I only mentioned that dollar amount because I wanted to maybe strike some people as like, wow, that's a lot for somebody who like, that was a significant amount of money. I don't want to I'm not pretending like I had so much that it didn't matter. It did matter, but it mattered more to me that I was like, I'm just sitting here collecting money from Cameo and YouTube right now. And I have a day job. So like, what can I do? Yes, I saved a lot of money also. I'm not acting like I was just, it comes in, it goes out. But I was like, all the news is talking about people suffering.
Well, why do you think I made the joke? I mean, why do you think you're that way? And why do you think you said, why aren't more people why don't they think the way that you think about those who need more, those who have more, and there's any number of cliched phrases. There's obviously religious ideologies around it, but there's always
I think I am somewhat of an unhappy person. And it makes me happy to feel like I can make other people not unhappy. I mean, comedy is a good example of that in terms of what I do, and giving to charity is like, I think I can help people. And that feels good. That feels good.
But it feels good regardless of where you are at with your own disposition, your own emotional.
But I'm giving you a little bit of my own
I appreciate that, but
personal level.
But I'm saying regardless of that, the idea of helping people is a great way to fight depression. It's a great thing to do in general. Helping people feels good. So the question still remains, regardless of your own status, why don't more people help be more generous?
I think because for whatever reasons, I think we've become a more selfish society. And I'm telling you, I blame the cell phone on, I think the cell phone has a role in an increase in this. I think we've always been a little bit selfish, but I think you can look back generations and see there were times when this country would rally together, and like World War II is a great example.
There's been no shared sacrifice since World War II. In our generation, we have not had any shared sacrifice made.
And no, but I bring up World War II to say it is possible. It's not like we never had it. We did have it. And I do think as we became maybe a little more consumer driven, maybe after World War II, our culture became a lot more consumerist, if that's a word. And then the cell phone really heightened, the smartphone really heightened a sense of like self-importance beyond anything we've seen before. But to me, I think we don't see, and
can you be more, the cell phone, is it social, is it Instagram? I see somebody else having a good time or having a thing, and I want.
Like Jonathan Haidt said, the downturn in emotions, though, when there was in his data, when the self-facing camera, like it was 07 was a certain marker, the invention of the iPhone, but the self-facing camera, when the selfie became a mode of photos and videos, there was a dip in people in like youth happiness and things. So I think that like making your world yourself is the opposite of empathy, of helping others, of it creates, I think, maybe a mindset where you're like, you're even more focused on yourself than the normal human being would be self-focused. And I think when it comes to something like charity or even politics, it's when you can't see, when you brought this up very early in the episode, and I meant to say something, whenever Trump has a point, like you kind of you said white people have struggles too. Absolutely. But I'm saying what I think is very difficult in this country, and you can use crack and oxy as a perfect, easy example, which is when it was black people, and you could point to women's issues throughout our history as well. But when it was black people, just to make it a literally black and white issue, when it was black people, there was no sympathy. There was no understanding. It was like violence and crack babies, and the community is rotting morally, and we have to lock them up and throw away the key. That was it. When it was white people struggling with opioids, you can't tell me every opioid dealer and user was just a down on his luck farmer who just couldn't make the rent that month and was trying his darndest to be a good man and a good family man. And oh boy, opioids just came in and took control. And isn't that sad? There were pieces of shit abusing and selling opioids, I'm sure. But there was a general understanding of, hey, that's unfortunate. We need to treat this differently. We need to learn our lessons. Now, a lot of commentators, especially black commentators, would say, yes, we're not going to be hypocrites or, well, you fucked us, so we're going to fuck you. But there was an idea of like, can this be a teachable moment that the next time there's something that afflicts a community that doesn't look like you or live near you, that you look at it a different way? And I don't know if we're capable of that as a society in this country right now, to the next time that happens, say, you know what? They might be going through some things. We need to look at the history of this, or we need to look at this. No, we have a president right now who's trying to turn apartheid into, a prelude to the real problem, which is white farmers getting killed. By the way, more black farmers getting killed than white farmers. He left that out. That's, to me, the darkly funny thing. Well, why don't you rescue some of the black farmers who are getting killed, since they're a majority of the homicide victims on farms? You're not even making the point you think you're making.
Answer your own your question as Trump.
Blacks do crime a lot. Okay, so they do. It should have, it should have, like, crime. It should have goes with the should have territory. But when white people are victims of crime, they don't do crimes. They try to stay out of crimes. So the crime is sort of coming for them. And we have to stop it, because if I made a joke where I posted, I know The Godfather inside and out. And one of the Dons in the meeting in The Godfather, he's talking about dealing heroin. Don Corleone does not want to deal heroin. All the other Dons want to start dealing drugs because it's lucrative. And so he agrees to it. And one of the Dons goes, and I can't remember if it's Strachey or Cuneo, but he says, I don't want it near schools or near children. Like big moral stand. He goes, keep it in the dark, people. They're animals anyway. Let them lose their souls. I think that's how Trump feels about immigrants and people of color today.
No doubt about it.
Not like back in the day. I think today, if you put him up to a lie detector, he'd be like, oh, white people are just sort of like,
by the way,
we're all, sort of better people.
By the way, I'm sensitive to being Italian and spend a lot of time in Sicily. Any glorification of the mafia offends me deeply. And my understanding is the Italian family, organized criminals, they never were thoughtful. Like they didn't have boundaries. Like don't sell to your kids, or they were ruthless. They're horrible people.
I watched a History Channel thing on the history of the five families, and there was some.
Oh yeah, they had some.
There was gradations of criminality. But yeah, no, of course, I think there were distinctions, perhaps without a difference. But yeah, and I'm sorry I went long on this. I'm sorry, but I'm like, I hope people, this book has moved me.
Great.
In a very I don't think you have to, I don't know. It makes me want to if I don't get elected to office and get that platform, it really makes me want to be like, hey, I know I'm not a good lawyer, but can you just teach me the ropes so I can help some of these people?
That'd be great. And you'd be great at it. You are a good lawyer. You're good at everything.
No. I might be smarter than the average person, but I'm not a good, I'm so out of practice with real law.
To have you working in on advocacy for, in this case, people who are homeless would be a huge, I'm sure, contribution.
And one of the things that popped in my head, my mom used to have to go to landlord-tenant court on behalf of her boss, who was a landlord in New York. But they were luxury buildings in Manhattan, so it wasn't like some indigent person. It was somebody trying to scam a month free of rent or something or whatever. But it was not indigent people. But then you hear about landlord-tenant court for the poor people. And, she shows up and thinking it's just going to be sir, he evicted me and he couldn't. Well, her landlord has his lawyer there and smokes her out of the court. And you're like, this is, this. And you realize Georgia, there's so many examples where he's like, but Georgia is one of the 7 states that doesn't X, Y, or Z. And you're like, another reason why you need Democrats at the state level, because some of the things it just feels like it should be criminal, not just bad policy. It feels criminal.
Yeah. It is criminal. It's done by design. By design. I mean,
and you have obviously, and this isn't to say, just the way I have sometimes sympathy for bus drivers in Jersey. Some of the bus drivers are assholes. But sometimes you're on a bus and you're like, I kind of get why that bus driver would be an asshole, because he's got people yelling at him and hitting the button and telling them, threatening him if they don't have fare. So I understand it's not a one or the other where it's all these people are just salt of the earth who need a break. No, I'm sure you deal with some criminal elements, some assholes. Right. But it's the same way I feel. I've said this about Israel. I say this about our criminal justice system. I say, if you're going to be the good guy, you got to be willing to take some losses. The good guy has to take some losses because you're the good guy. If you want to be a bad guy and just indiscriminately bomb or treat everyone like a criminal when they're struggling, then you're going to, I guess, win, but you're going to cause a lot more damage to innocence than you should. Sometimes you have to be surgical. Sometimes you have to put extra effort in. Sometimes you have to allow a scammer to do waste, fraud, and abuse, because it might help 5 people who are honest and good get a lifeline, and I feel like that's the ethos of the Trump. We used to say better for 10 guilty men to go free than 1 innocent man go to jail. I think the whole MAGA mindset is better that a bunch of innocent people go to jail than me be uncomfortable. And I really do. I do believe that's kind of the mindset.
Yes. there's a general lack of concern about anyone else's interests if you don't know them.
Yeah.
Especially if you didn't.
I think that's an advantage of, I don't want to say being biracial, but being in a cosmopolitan city like New York, going to an Irish Catholic church, but growing up in a diverse city, having a black dad, a white mom, having different experience. Like, I think, just like I have often said, I think maybe is that why I'm good at impressions, because I heard so many different things like in my brain as a young person. But similarly, I think you see yourself in more people if you associate and deal with more people.
Not only do I not want to think about these people, I definitely don't want to see them. Get them out of my face. I don't want to stop. And by the way, stop forcing your sexuality down my throat while you're at it.
Yeah.
I really hate that when people do that.
And that was the thing I wrote several months ago, where I was just like, this country loves to talk about pull yourself up by its bootstraps and all the success stories. And I go, and yet all the communities who have made gains through just that hard work, determination, fighting through generations of struggle. And I'm talking women, gay people, black people, immigrants, all these things that embody the American spirit that the patriots on the right claim to love, but they don't. They like it when it looks like them. And, it's the way I said, Obama is the ultimate American story, unless you're a racist, half immigrant, half American, biracial.
Where the places that plays out the most is in organized labor, where people vote against their own interest. Union members, you don't have to love, that you're unionized at your company or in your industry or something, but the idea that you would vote for a Republican who is sure to destroy your union, thus the benefits that you're gaining from it. It's just great. My mom, was a teacher for 25 years in the Syracuse City School District. And she always reminds me about, she's now 80, that she pays almost nothing at all for health insurance. Not only because of Medicare, but obviously because of her New York State teacher insurance, which is part of her retirement. And it's huge benefits. The idea that you would fight against that for culture war purposes really is, because there's a trans girl on the volleyball team.
And when I've said, like, we both know Adam Sank, comedian, early 50s, looks great for his age. And, but he is somebody, I've never told him this. I'll tell him this when I'm old, but I look at him and I think that's a guy who, as far as I can tell, he's friendly. He's joyful. He's also a gay man in his 50s. That dude has seen some shit, dealt with shit, probably buried friends. You know what I mean? Like, he's of that age where it's like, he's been through a fucking war. Like, it's a culture war, but it's actually like a war to of a certain age when you think about what happened in the 80s and the 90s to that community. And I've always said, God, I fucking admire that dude, because I have none of those problems and I'm fucking miserable. And he has fought whatever his way is, in whatever way he's fought through. And I extrapolate that to broader communities when I say, you've got generations, you've got people who both individually and as part of a movement have made gains and have fought through a system working against them to achieve something that makes the system look good. It's almost like, I will fight a system that oppresses me, because when I succeed, then those same people who oppress me will talk about how great our system is because I overcame things that they put in my way. It's a very odd logic, but I go, you just see people overcoming things. And now we've gotten to this point where, whether it's jealousy, we gave you lemons and now we're jealous of the lemonade you made, seems to be sort of the mindset of so many people in this country, where it's like, all these groups that we hold back and are adding, we now view their addition to our country as subtraction and something that needs to be curtailed, because we want to be, it's like being on a team where it's like, hey, the team wins if we all score more points than the opponent, not if you score 40 of our 50 points.
I just wish we could have the people like that get offer great benefits to our country, like especially undocumented people, especially as landscapers and in restaurants, because you see them. You can see them as opposed to maybe some of the undocumented people working in the fields, picking strawberries, or say working at, a chicken factory, cutting up, animals and shit like that. You don't see
chickens.
You don't see them. And
probably at the chicken factory, probably chickens. You look like you said animals generally, but I'm going to go probably chickens.
I was thinking about other animal factories, and I felt bad for excluding those people who work also in other kinds of slaughterhouses. That sounds like a fucking horrible job. And every day someone cuts a finger or an arm off and then has to hide in the shadows. Why can't all those people just not be so prevalent in our neighborhoods and in our communities? Why can't they be more quiet, more invisible? And that's what people really want, which is crazy because they're literally giving them their money. My neighbor across the street is so big MAGA, anti-Trumper, anti-immigrant. Every week they come, and while he's yelling on Facebook and watching Fox News, they're mowing his lawn. Like, he's directly benefiting from them, and so many of us are. And the truth is, they try so hard. Have you ever noticed this about people that you assume are undocumented? They're trying so hard not to be noticed. They're literally hiding in.
You mean while they're committing crimes, Pete?
I think most undocumented people I see are just waiting to go home after a long, hard day.
Yeah. Oh, I'll be on the subway sometimes at like 11:30 p.m. and I'm like, those three are definitely coming home from their second job.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm drunk. My computer is going to run out of battery shortly.
Earlier when you said,
Want me to get my charger and continue?
Riding. No, I gotta go. Okay. But I was just reminded me of when you talk about riding in public transportation. When I used to get up super early or I'd stay out really late doing comedy and I'd ride the subway, I do remember always being the only white person. And all the brown and black people were in, quote, their work clothes.
Right.
Either, healthcare or construction or whatever it was. And I just remember thinking, it's hard to be a bigot along the lines of minorities, poor brown and black people are lazy if you ride a subway at 3 a.m.
Yes. And I agree completely. I've used that example. I agree completely. It's like
they're doing the hardest jobs at the worst hours and having to take public transportation also at the worst hours. And it's like, these are the hardest working people. I wish everybody could just, the anecdote of the poor, lazy black or brown person is so powerful and prevalent in America, particularly, but elsewhere, obviously. And I just want them all to ride the subway at 3 a.m. and tell me how lazy they are.
Yeah. And then one crime will be committed and then they will arrest all of them. The end.
People want us to do this regularly. Ronnie says you should do this regularly and call it Rain Up with JL and Pete or Stand on Your Parade. All right, I'll let you go. I appreciate whenever you join.
Thanks for letting me go off. I appreciate it. But everybody, that book is something.
Get the book, and I'll try to interview the author, and you should as well.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks, buddy.
Thank you.
There he goes, everybody. He's leaving. He's got to go. His computer's running out. He's out of energy. There he goes. This is me. What a buzzkill. Once he leaves, and it's just me alone. You're welcome, Cheyenne. Thanks, everybody, for joining. I'm reading all the comments. Appreciate y'all here on YouTube. I'm going to wrap it up, but I think I'll post this on the podcast for tomorrow, but you got to see it now. So figuring out this YouTube thing. All right. I think I'm just going to sit here and stare at the camera. What's crazy is like, there are people who do things like that and they get like millions of like followers and viewers. And I get, what's this thing where people now, I see this on Instagram, their head pops up over a video and their whole post is them watching the video and just like making faces. That to me is the height of everything that's wrong with social media. You have a huge following. You're literally doing nothing. You're sitting in front of somebody else's video and just making faces. 1 billion followers. I don't know. Your green screen reactions, Rachel. Is that what it's called? Yeah. That's weird. I know some smart people that do that. They just pop up and they just go, I just want to blow my brains out. I'm like, what? Who told you that this would be a noble pursuit of your time? Billion views. Meanwhile, I have something original to do or say or bring on an expert. 7 views. But I'm not. I am really not cynical about it. I really am not. I just love to make fun of it. It is what it is. It's the world we live in. I mean, I say it to my own daughters. Like, you can go on and be an attractive young woman and shake your boobs. Billion views. All right. Well, good for you. But I crafted a bit for 6 years. 7 views. The greatest artist in the world. 9 views. But I also buy all that shit too, man. Time-lapse landscaping video, that actually takes talent and work though, so that's not the same. The mukbangers, what are they, Kim? I don't know. I like just hanging out here with you guys, even though she just put the link in the chat and you guys can all pop up on the screen and join me. Let's see if that actually works. I'm going to post the link to this and see. Yeah, help me out here. Rachel, I pick you. Or Kim. Who else is here? Amanda. One of you click on that link. Will you pop up and then I can put you up? I think I did this before. Ronnie. This is good. It combines the hangouts with the podcast. All right. People who eat a shit ton of food. What is that? That's what you watch? Somebody click on that link and see if I can put you in the screen with me. I'm going to count down. Okay, Rachel. It worked. So I can do that.
Oh, I got to mute the other one.
Oh, and Sandman too.
Oh, there we go. Ooh.
Like, oh, your lights are killing me, Sam. Where are you?
He's in his basement.
Kim's driving. Don't worry. I can't hear you.
He didn't turn his mic on.
Okay, well that works. So it could bring people in like this. Hi. What were you saying? What's a mukbanger? Do either of you know?
That's when people eat and eat and eat on TV.
What do you mean? Do I know what that is? When they eat, are you watching them eat? Just watching?
Yeah, you just watch people eat.
I actually don't think I know what that.
There's a guy who does like on TikTok. He eats a whole cucumber. That's his shtick. Like he makes cucumber salad and eats it, and he just like slurps, and it drives Michael nuts. I like to turn the volume all the way up, and he like I just gross myself out with that.
The one thing, this isn't along the lines of this, because what I was making fun of is that someone that is doing nothing, and yet they get a lot of views or people are watching. But I guess this
like
now
this?
I feel like I'm in a category. Yeah, I want to stay on that, but I feel like I'm in the category of the things I do watch and won't turn away from. And one of those is those time lapse anything, building something time lapse. I've lost so much of my life building a time lapse.
Ooh, look at this. It's a party.
But I also will watch any person, and it's almost always a man, who goes camping, Sandman, and he takes a rock and he washes it in a stream.
And he cooks meat on it?
He builds a fire under the rock, and the whole thing is jump cuts. And he brought a piece of meat, a huge piece of meat. And he also brought a ball of dough, which he makes a little reservoir in. And he drops an egg in that. And then he makes bread. And then he fucking chops up a bunch of peppers and onions and spices. And he has all these things that he holds them in. And he's got, by the way, still has that perfect rock and piece of wood to chop on. You know, he's lugging out there. I'll watch that whole. I don't care if there was a baby drowning. I'm like, I got to finish this video.
It's got to be next to a stream.
It's got to be. It's always next to a stream because you can rinse. He rinses. It's always next to a stream. It's a fire next to a stream. He brought an amazing piece of wood.
Like, where did he get that wood?
He got it. It doesn't matter. The fact is he carried it out there.
He had to have. You're not going to find dry wood to build a fire to cook a steak next to a stream.
Now, how hot can you make a rock? if you put a fire under a rock, I'm thinking it has to be fairly thin for it to get hot enough to cook a piece of meat. Like what would happen in my video is we should do my version where it's a total fail and like shit
Just
falls.
sitting there eating raw meat.
I think it's like 150 degrees in the sun.
Yeah, but Ronnie, my rock is too thick. I've picked a rock too thick, or my fire's not hot enough. My meat's not cooking is the bottom line.
Right. Sounds like a personal problem.
All right.
I'm gonna sign off. This is really
okay. Bye, everybody. I'm gonna sign off too. This worked. Thanks for helping me, even though Amanda and Sandman didn't know how to turn off their microphones. All right, I'm ending, but thanks for stopping in and watching this, and then also contributing. Love you guys. Talk to you later.